What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking the age-old question, the question everybody has entering every single fantasy football season, and that is, what is the best draft spot this year? So make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter, actually, All Day Pigskin, to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comments, your thoughts, along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's dive into it. And as you can see, I have got a draft board here pulled up via fantasypros. This is a 12-team full PPR setup. I just put in a random draft spot, but I figured this would be the best way to illustrate the example that we are discussing. And I kind of do this every single year. And I think the visualization here, being able to go through the cheat sheets, the players, the draft board, the roster builds, the available players, is just the best way in terms of execution. So, let's dive into it. Every year when I discuss this, I talk about, breaking up the draft. Let's say it's, a 12-team league, which is typically the standard, into, the first 4 picks, then the next 4, then the last 4. It just kind of makes sense. So the start of the draft, the middle point of the draft, and then the last couple of picks. That's the way we're going to approach this here. So, if it's a 10-team league, kind of lessen that by 1, right? The first 3, the next 3, then the last 3, 4. But in this situation, right, let's break it down. Again, this is Fantasy Pros, so these picks have kind of been just auto-selected right now, but for the point of our exercise, that's completely fine because we're not seeing anything too crazy. That's why I like to use this. It's pretty spot on with the ADPs for the most part. So let's discuss what you can kind of come to expect in each draft range. I think that's the way we have to look at it, right? So the first 3, 4 picks, it's pretty much, at least the first 2 are going to be pretty chalk. It's going to be Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, some type of combo there. Then the next 2 picks, maybe it's a Justin Jefferson if it's another wide receiver. And if it's, running back heavy, maybe it's a Gibbs, maybe it's a Barkley, something of that ilk, right? So nothing wrong there with that situation. You're getting bona fide studs, but honestly, I think that's the case for the majority of the first round this year. Like, I feel as if the first round is very, very deep this year compared to some other years. Now, yes, there are situations where, an injury might happen between now and the start of the season, multiple injuries where it might change that conversation, right? But for the time being, there have been no major injuries to the top names as far as the contenders in the first round. So I like the names that are going to be going with the first 4 picks. My problem is, and I have been saying this since day one, since back in April when we were doing mock drafts, right? When I was loading up all those mock drafts, and I'm kind of just looking at it, right? And from an objective standpoint, I just think that the first pick overall, like this year, you could go in a number of different directions. Like the last couple of years, it was, for sure Justin Jefferson, for sure Christian McCaffrey, yada, yada, yada. This year, you've seen Jamar Chase, you've seen Bijan Robinson, maybe you've seen a Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe you've even seen a Justin Jefferson. Like, there's a lot of different options. And the reason I point that out is because you could potentially get one of those top number 1 guys, if you will, with the 3rd or with the 4th overall pick. And honestly, I think that's kind of why I prefer not to have the 1st or even the 2nd overall pick. Like, if I'm in that first range of selections, I'd rather have, the 3 or the 4. So based on that, I'm saying I prefer not to have, the immediate start of selections, 1st, 2nd, 3rd pick. Now let's look at the other next range, right? So right in the middle of it, picks like 5 through 8, something like that. In this situation, we have Jahmyr Gibbs, Barkley. So still, running backs that are really, really good. In fact, a lot of people have Bijan not necessarily that much ahead of a Jahmyr Gibbs, of a Saquon Barkley. I think the reason why Barkley is like going 106 or a little bit later is because people are just afraid that, it's very, very hard to repeat being the number one overall running back year to year. And as far as wide receivers that can go in this range, I will say Brian Thomas going here probably a little bit earlier than I would select him. But still, right? Malik Neighbors, that's fine. Looking at the cheat sheet, other names you can get, right? Mon-Ra, Puka, Nico Collins. I think all those names are very, very solid options. So I like that situation. And to me, gives you a lot of flexibility here, basically, right? So gives you the flexibility to either go with a tier one running back or with a tier one wide receiver. So that's one of the nice things that I really, really like about the middle point of the drafts. To me, the biggest, point here is how this sets you up in the second round. I think, like I mentioned before, the first round you're gonna be fine almost no matter what, unless there's some type of freak injury, something of that nature. But assuming full health, the first round very deep, so I think you're gonna be fine. I think it's really in the second round where things start to kick off. So let's just select a player here. It doesn't really matter who we select for the sake of our exercise. We're going to be dissecting what players were available where. So we can kind of play around with this. Let's just go with let's go with the wide receiver. Let's go with a Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Nico Collins. Yeah, I don't care. I'm just gonna go, let's say, with Nico Collins. I kind of prefer Nico ahead of some of those other wide receivers. But again, that's completely open to public opinion, right? So now we are in a situation where we are in the second round. So a lot of this is also going to come down to like roster construction, how you personally like to build your squad. And I will say that, I prefer a more balanced approach. And, maybe I'm biased in that way. But right now, the first couple of picks in the second round have been made. So after our Nico Collins pick, it was Puka, Mon-Ra, Drake London jumps up into the first round. Some people are more bullish on him. McCaffrey then with the first pick in the second. Brock Bowers, and Derrick Henry. So what you see here at the end of the first round, so like kind of that last range of picks, the last 3-4 picks, is you have a chance to, go ahead and load up on multiple tier one players. And, some of these combinations, Puka and Derrick Henry, here it could have been a different wide receiver in Drake London, but you go with Christian McCaffrey. You could have ended up with McCaffrey and Derrick Henry or McCaffrey and Genty. So I really, really like that situation there, because once we get towards the end of the second round, I think there's a drop off. Probably, let's look at the cheat sheet with 1, 2, 3, 4 more guys at most afterwards. I think there's a big tier drop in terms of selections. And honestly, if we want to be very, very objective with this, like Brock Bowers was selected the 202. Let's pretend that didn't happen. Like Brock Bowers, I can even edit this. So let's do that. Let's go and put in let's put in Genty here. So I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna swap that with Genty because I think it's a little bit more realistic, right? So immediately, like right now, this combo of Amon-Ra and Ashton Genty, I think, is spectacular. Very well could have been Nico Collins and Ashton Genty. Now we are in a spot here where we originally had, just as a reminder, the 9th overall pick. We're in a spot here picking 4th overall in the second round where we can still get another tier 1 player, at least in my opinion. Like I think Achane fits that ilk, and for that reason, like I think realistically, this is right around that cutoff. Because then you get to, some of these wide receivers, A.J. Brown, McConkey, JSN. Like, A.J. Brown, sometimes he's on and off, right? Up and down. I think more standard suited guy. Lad McConkey broke out last year, but I think with Keenan Allen returning, like, there's going to be some stuff there. JSN, not as proven. Teagan's number 2. Garrett Wilson, you're dealing with Justin Fields. So, like, we're done with the wide receiver conversation as far as tier ones. With the running backs, and honestly, you might even say this tier is over, depending on how you feel about the soft tissue injury with Achane, but, expected, knock on wood, to be there for week 1. Chase Brown is somebody that I'm personally high on, so, maybe 1 or 2 names left, and this is what I wanted to highlight. Like, this is what I wanted to do. I'm not even considering Brock Bowers. I think taking a tight end this early is really going to put you behind the 8 ball for the remainder of the draft, especially if you're in bigger leagues in terms of roster construction. If you're somebody that's a more seasoned drafter, fantasy football player, then okay, maybe you take that risk. But for the typical person, I think going running back, wide receiver, running back, or maybe even 2 wide receivers leads to better roster construction. So we went Nico Collins here. Like, right now, I'm going to go with an Achane. I know he's dealing with an injury, so a little bit up in the air. Maybe that's why his ADP is a little bit down. I get it. I think you can also swap in Achane, Chase Brown for the sake of this conversation. But let's draft Achane. Then I'm going to go ahead and pull up the draft board again, and we can kind of use this to analyze, because I think this is the biggest point of this discussion where we get into it right here. So we kind of broke down the different ranges, right? The start of the draft, the first 3-4 picks, then the next 3-4, and then finally the last 3-4 selections. So what we got to understand, right? Every range has its pros and cons. The first 3-4, you have your choice of the quote unquote any players, but you're gonna have to wait then a really long time until you get to make another pair of selections, and I think that's where you run into troubles, where in the second round, by the time you're selecting again, unless there's been some real craziness, there's a big drop-off in talent, a lot more question marks. So that's why I'm out this year in 2025 on the first 3-4, on the early parts of the draft. Then the middle portion of the draft. I like the middle portion. What I said is the first round is very deep. So a lot of the guys that might go 1 or 2 overall, or that can finish as the number 1 guy at their position, could very well be there in that 5 to 8 range, which I do like. I think you're not going to have to reach on as much on other players as somebody that's picking first overall, somebody that's picking last overall, which is nice. Makes it a little bit easier navigating some of those waters. And then if somebody is falling, that's a really good value. You have a higher chance of nabbing them. So that's why I typically do like that range. But I think you got to be careful this year with that, because it's not the full portion of this range where you can get a top tier guy in the second round. And this is what I mean, right? So after we went Achane, it was A.J. Brown, then Chase Brown, and then like picks that guys that had the 5th and 6th pick overall, like they went Bowers, they went Josh Jacobs. I think you've got a teardrop there, in my opinion. So that's something to point out. And that brings us to these last 3-4 picks, kind of where we were slotted in originally. And I think here is kind of that sweet spot. I think the start of the last couple of picks. So again, I don't want to be like last overall or second to last necessarily, just because if I can, I'd rather avoid having to wait as long. But if I'm like, if I have the 10th pick or the 9th pick, I think that still puts me in a really good spot to get a difference maker at the at some point in the second round. Again, like a Derrick Henry, an Achane, a Chase Brown, and I think getting those 2 studs in the first 2 rounds compared to like getting let's say Jamar Chase and maybe like a T. Higgins or Bucky Irving here, because we went into the 3rd round, or like let's say Bijan or Lad McConkey, like I'm sorry, but I like the combo of even McCaffrey and Drake London more. Genti and Amon Ra for sure. Like Puka and Derrick Henry, assuming Stafford is fine. Nico and Achan. So I think you have less drop off with the first two selections. And I honestly, I think that's how you have to look at it this year. It's not just about the first round, it's about the first two rounds. It's about that group of tier one players. Yes, it's deep this year, which again is why I almost think that the first range of picks is nothing to write home about. If I have the first overall pick, I don't really care that much. I just don't want to miss out on getting that second tier one guy. And I think once you get probably to like pick 5, 6, 7 in the second round, that's when you're starting to ask for trouble. So basically, what that equates to when answering the question, what is the best draft pick to have in 2025 this year? I'll even give you numbers. We'll stop talking about ranges. I think it's right around there. If you want to be safe, picks 9 and 10. Picks 9 and 10, I think, are money this year. If you can get pick 8 and have a guy in the second round like an Achan or a Derrick Henry drop to you, Chase Brown, I think you're also kind of in business. So it's right around that inflection point of the middle group of picks to the last group of picks. I think that's the money spot. I think you could also make it work with like the second to last or the last pick. But again, if I'm just looking to optimize all situations, if I can still get that combo of tier one guys and don't have to wait as long in between selections afterwards in the second and third round, I'd rather do that. So that's what I'm pointing to. I think that here in the third round, you get to a situation where there's not too many tier one guys left, really, if any, depending again how you feel about a Bucky Irving, how you feel about a Jonathan Taylor. Wide receivers for sure, not like you're looking at Adams, Evans, DJ Moore. There's still some also if you want to go the top end quarterback approach, you can still get a top end probably quarterback here at this point in time. As you can see, Lamar Jackson available there for you if you need it. But once you get to this point in the draft, it's kind of every man for themselves. This is where the true drafting begins, and there's luck involved, right? There's some craziness that's going to happen, but I'm talking about if you can set yourself up for success right out of the gate and make things the easiest. The best way to do that is like guarantee your first two picks are the safest, the highest ceiling guys. And again, picks 9 and 10, I think, do the best job of that this year. And then afterwards, it's going to come down to doing your homework. It's going to come down to kind of anticipating the moves of your league mates, of how you want to construct your roster as a whole. Did you do enough mock drafts? Are you familiar with the platforms? Things like that. Do you know the sleepers? So then it kind of becomes a free-for-all. But again, I think this year, picks 9, picks 10 are the money picks. They're going to allow you to come out of the first two rounds. Think of it, it's not just the first round. The first two rounds with two tier one guys with two huge difference makers. Basically, a guy that can finish as a top 5 wide receiver and a top 5 running back. Sign me up for that. So I think this year that is the money spot. If you can get one of those picks, you are in the best situation. And then afterwards, obviously, in the next several rounds, it comes down to you, to how much homework you've done, how comfortable you feel with it. But in the first two rounds, it should be pretty simple. It should be pretty easy. And you should be, elated that you are in those draft spots. I would say, if you're in a smaller league size, then you can kind of push back this range by a pick or two. If you're in a larger league size, you gotta go in the other direction by a pick or two. So pretty straightforward, but hey, let me know your thoughts. Do you agree, disagree? Do you firmly believe it's the first couple of picks, that it's the last pick, that it's right in the middle. Where do you stand on this and why? If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. Again, give us a follow on Twitter, @AllDayPigskin, to continue interacting with us there. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.